Greetings! This is video 2 of your Wednesday lecture. You only have about maybe 5 or 6 minutes left. I just wanted to talk about a bit of grammar, and I didn't want to rush through it because if you talk about grammar too quickly, A, it becomes really boring and mundane, and B, I don't think we really pay attention to it. And this isn't a conclusive list of all the grammatical errors that I saw. It's just the ones that were repeated over and over. Okay? So, the big one was third person as your friend. I saw a lot of writers who would begin sentence with, I think that Achilles is a better hero than Hector, or I grew up in a household that read Gilgamesh and the Bible. A lot of scholars will write in the first person, and when I'm reading scholarly journals or peer-reviewed journals, I see a lot of authors say something like, after I've analyzed these two characters, I've come to this conclusion. Here's why they can do that, though. They have really analyzed two characters, and they've come to a conclusion, and they're providing a lot of secondary and primary sources. They've established their ethos. There's a reason why I should listen to them. I won't lie to you, though, it's not my favorite style of writing. Even when I'm reading scholars, sometimes I think they can get rid of the I think, I believe, I feel. It's extraneous. You don't need it. So instead of writing, I think Achilles is a better hero than Hector, just get rid of the extra words and state it as a declarative statement. He's a better hero than Hector, and then your essay is going to prove that to me. There's nothing wrong with stating it as fact, and then proving it with primary and secondary sources. So please remember third person. I think I said that quite a bit in pretty much every essay. My second big point was the use of vague pronouns. So whenever you're writing and you're using the words it, or this, or that, or they, or these, any of those are just really vague, and I don't know what you're talking about. Now, we do this all the time in verbal communication. Let's say I came home this afternoon, there's dishes still on the counter, and I point to it, and I tell my husband, that really irritates me. Well, my antecedent is me pointing to the dishes, so he understands what I'm saying. So I probably won't say, the fact that you haven't emptied the dishwasher really annoys me, because there's a visual antecedent. So I know some of you argue, I talk that way. Yeah, but you probably shouldn't write that way, because it's a formal essay, okay? So for example, here's a sentence that I pulled out of an essay. These cultures experience floodwaters, dangerous geography, and apathetic rulers. This means it's a negative society. Well, we're talking about Mesopotamia, but the minute you use the word this, I wasn't sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about cultures? The floodwaters? Geography? The rulers? Or do you mean the combination of all of those elements illustrate a negative society? So how do you get rid of that? Because I know some of you are thinking, I cannot write my essay and pay attention to thesis statements and topic sentences and transitional elements and concrete details, and then add primary sources and secondary sources and cite them perfectly. Now I have to look at all my words and grammar and make sure that I'm not too wordy, but I'm not too succinct. I get that. Here's what I do in the editing process, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm the biggest perpetrator of this offense. When I write, I love the word that. So when I'm revising, I go back to the revision process and I check for all those prepositions and I make sure that they're very clear to what it's referring. That's what the revision process is for. So all of these things that I'm looking at, I pick up later. The same is true with the second point. Don't end a sentence with a preposition. The reason why? Preposition has to have an object, or it's a dangling preposition. So I don't say, this is the person I was looking for, and I don't say, where is my book at? Because I'm dangling a preposition. So if you don't want to say, this is for whom I was looking, you can say, this is the person I was seeking, or simply, where is my book? So again, pick that up in the revision process. You're going to go back and you're going to look at your pronouns. You're going to look at your prepositions. You're also going to look for this, plural versus singular. This is a mistake a lot of people make. Matter of fact, I made this mistake my very first semester teaching. I had my students journal, and I wrote a note on the board, and I said, a person's hands say so much about them. And I had them write about that. Well, there's two things wrong with the original sentence. One, you'll notice I changed a lot to so much because it's a little bit more formal. But the second problem is probably the biggest one. A person is singular. And them is plural. So how do you fix this sentence? We need to make it match. A person's hands say so much about him or her, or people's hands say so much about them. Either way, as long as you make it match, you pick it up in the revision process. Okay, your final grammatical note, and everybody makes this mistake, and I'm telling you, if you can master this, the comma splice, the semicolon, you're going to be a genius, okay? The comma splice is simply that. It's when you're taking two independent clauses and you're joining by a comma. So what's an independent clause? Well, it's basically, it's a sentence that can stand alone on its own. So, I love cats. That is an independent clause. It's a sentence. We're going to call it a brick for my Home Depot lecture, okay? So this is a brick. And they are, the chosen animal is another brick, okay? Now if we're constructing a wall and you take two bricks and you put them together with just water, which is what a comma is, what happens? You get wet bricks. They don't stick together. So this is a comma splice because it's wet bricks. I've got two independent clauses of bricks and I put them together with just water. So I need to add bricks and mortar. Now, mortar is fanboys. So that's for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Okay, so I need to, now that I got my water, I gotta find the mortar, which is a fanboy. I don't know, I'm thinking and will work. So then I get this sentence. I love cats, and they are the chosen animal. Congratulations. You have just fixed a comma splice here, and you've turned it into a correct sentence. Now don't get me wrong, you can put that into two different sentences and avoid all of this together, but if you write this way constantly, it's going to sound choppy. I love cats. They are the chosen animal. They are furry. Please pet them. So you want to try to make a more sophisticated sentence. Now for me, if we're taking my Home Depot lecture, you can take your mortar, which is your fanboys, and your water, which is your comma, and you can go to Home Depot and buy it pre-mixed, which is the semicolon. So I love cats, semicolon. They are the chosen animal. And I know a lot of you are thinking, this is really generic and basic. And yes, I do agree, it's a basic grammatical element. For whatever reason, this is such a hard thing for people to master in writing. Every one of you had a comma splice at some point in your essay. So yeah, I'm using these silly sentences and they don't really reflect your essays. I get that. But just the basic idea. If you can find a way to incorporate two ideas, you'll notice these are two very similar ideas. And that's why I chose the semicolon, because they're similar. It's like a slow stop, you know. I want to stop, but I don't want a hard stop because they're connected, okay? Now, you can do something like this with the colon, but a lot of people mistake the use of a colon, okay? We'll talk more about that later, but I just wanted to make sure that we got the comma splices down. Okay, that is it, guys. That's the end of video 2. I am sending this with a quiz, so best of luck, and I will see you all Friday. Please make sure you text me, email me, or call me if you need anything.